Hi, welcome to another episode of MYD Global. I'm your host, Leanne Hackman-Carty. Today's episode, I'm speaking with Michelle Sullivan. She's with the City of Brampton and actually runs the Lighthouse Program there. It's a pioneering project that is one of a kind, and it's really been designed to engage faith communities with emergency preparedness, emergency management officers. So stay tuned and learn more about this program and how you might want to look at replicating something like this in your community. Hey, Michelle, great to see you again today. How are you doing?
Good. Great to see you.
Good. Hey, so before we get started on that topic today, how about just tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your background?
Okay, so I didn't originally start in emergency management. I kind of came about it indirect route. So I worked in a hospital when I was younger in an emergency room. Then I went into ambulance after that. And it was when I became involved in a non-governmental organization that responds to disasters that I became very interested in studying them and becoming a professional at it. So that was my journey. And that took probably a good 20 years to kind of formulate going from one to the other. So it wasn't instantly I graduated from school and started this work. It was kind of a journey to get there.
Yeah. So I know now you're working for, is it the City of Brampton?
City of Brampton Emergency Management Office, yes.
Yeah, in Ontario, Canada. And so tell me, I know one of the things that you work on is it's called the Lighthouse Program. I'm
That's
very
correct.
intrigued to know more about the program. So could you explain what it is, why you guys started this program, just details around it?
Of course. It's my favorite subject.
Good.
So this began as my internship project for the Royal Roads University Masters of Arts of Disaster and Emergency Management program. So I came to know Lighthouse as just a concept. What we wanted was all of the lessons learned from our 2013 ice storm taught us that we didn't have enough capacity in our emergency management program to reach our most vulnerable population. And we tried our best, and we have a good program, but our manager is really into quality improvement, and he wanted a comprehensive program that was reaching everyone, not just select groups across the city. So that there was a study that was conducted by York University to kind of help guide him about which populations he wasn't really reaching. And most of the ones that were impacted, and this was a 2012 study before the 2013 storm hit us, it told them that anybody who was socioeconomically challenged or mobility challenged, had mobility challenges, were not likely to be able to get the resources they needed in an emergency to help themselves. So that became kind of the start of the program. We're trying to develop a program that tries to develop capacity around those things. But it grew from there, because once we started building our stakeholders and realizing that the closest resources to our faith-based, to our vulnerable populations were faith-based organizations, we hadn't really outreached them. We needed to actually start there, but really no one in Canada was doing that kind of work. I was pretty much leading from the front and trying to invent a process where I could just blindly call faith-based organizations, hey, have you ever thought of working with your emergency management office? So it began from there. And that took probably about a couple of months to develop. I developed a PowerPoint presentation I could give to various faith-based organizations, but it was getting most of my response from Christian organizations.
Yeah.
And that's because our fire chaplain here, he was connected to a Christian organization that piloted something for us, and that was kind of a good place to start. But when I looked at the faith mosaic inside of my city, I realized we're not reaching the other half of our population. Only 51% are Christian here in Brampton. 19-20% are Sikh. There's 12% who are Hindu. 7% that are Muslim, 1% that are Buddhist. And so if you're just going to have Christian organizations outreaching, you're not reaching the all of the population. You're not reaching all of those who might be keen to help you, but they've never been outreached before in this manner. So I had to pretty much learn a lot about those faiths, do a lot of stakeholder engagement, have a lot of meetings, start talking about what we wanted to do and see if the other municipalities would like to join us. And eventually, after about a year, and I'd gone from several contracts after that, after my internship was over, they then brought me on part-time, and I was continuing again. It was about 2017 before Faith and the Common Good organization connected with us to say we'd like to kind of look at something about climate adaptation. You said a majority of your top 10 hazards in your area are weather or climate related. Could you tell us more about that? And so it kind of began there, where I started to form the program a little bit having to do with climate adaptation, because the first things we wanted to open were cooling centers for heat waves. It seemed to be the simplest way to start with a lot of our faith-based organizations, because we'd done it before with a Christian organization. We figured, well, let's try it with other organizations. But because we're an all-hazard approach here in Brampton, that fit only for a little while. So then that kernel or group of people grew. So there were more stakeholders that as soon as I began to expand into a more all-hazards approach, looking at all kinds of different ways that faith-based organizations and community service organizations could help us, and we could help them. And we do have a very good community emergency response volunteer program here in Brampton. We could help train them to if they didn't feel quite ready to do that kind of work. And it's grown from there.
And so from a practical standpoint, so now you're engaged with a number of faith-based organizations. Are they involved in a network where you're doing exercises or planning, or like on an ongoing basis? How are they engaging with you?
It's a variety of different experiences. We often invite our groups, anybody we have contact with through the year, in all our various just aspects of the emergency management office, to our annual workshop that happens in the beginning of February, or sometimes even like January. This year it's February 4th.
Yeah.
But that's only one way that they can engage us. There are other ways that they can engage us. We've tried, for example, a Canadian version of Resilientville with a group of people. We've done asset-based community development and asset-based community mapping events with different faith groups, and through those engagements, we've been able to bring together a wide swath of different groups of the population who we never would have engaged before. So it's really kind of grown, where almost every single civic engagement event that's coming up that they might like to connect with, we connect them. One of the biggest for our city is the Brampton 2040, which is basically the vision for the city for the next, up till the year 2040. What do we want to do? And we involve a lot of our community groups there as well. So we look for people who are civically engaged. If they want to become more civically engaged, then we'll plug them into different types of programs. And in the Lighthouse Program, we'll be offering a type of basic disaster relief through their faith facilities. So it's kind of more connected to what their facility and their group of volunteers. We like to use vulnerable sector volunteers specifically.
Yeah.
And that's because it's just the group that are more trained and capable of working with vulnerable populations.
Yeah.
But we also involve subject matter experts. Like, for example, we had a number of different memorials after we had the memorial for the Quebec mosque incident. New Zealand had an incident shortly thereafter, and then there was a memorial attached to that one. We were inviting different groups, and then of course there was one in Sri Lanka after that, having to do with faith-based organizations who've experienced an active attack, whether that was a bombing or a shooting or whatever. And this seems to be the biggest barrier for a lot of the newer faith-based organizations that have contacted me, was this fear that, well, how can I welcome a stranger to give them basic disaster relief services into my faith facility if I don't feel safe in my faith facility? So expanded from there, that's why we began the all hazards approach, where we thought, well, let's partner or collaborate with organizations that can bring some sort of training to these organizations that are interested, that would have been probably very keen to become involved, except there's that one little barrier. So we've been collaborating with the SLAM project, which are a group of individuals that have been doing drills and safety drills and workshops having to do with active attack. They have the latest research, so they've incorporated into their programming all the research of all the previous active attacks on faith facilities, and they include that in their workshop. And it does, once people receive this type of training, they're a lot more confident. The drills, they do several drills in a row, and then you see them markedly improve from one drill to the next with that growing increased confidence. And I think that will be, I think, one of the most major things I'll be presenting this year with the Lighthouse program. We've gone from asset-based development and that sort of thing, but now we're moving into how do we involve them in scenarios and drills and exercises, include them in maybe a larger city exercise, maybe have them at some of our committee meetings, and a lot of them have been welcomed into different committees that are connected to Brampton 2040. So it's growing, it's changing. I think that what has been a revelation to me is how many other municipalities wanted to try this. We're kind of reluctant, but once I kind of got a champion kit together that I could just send to them in a PDF about the things that the steps I took to get it started, they were then very enthusiastic about giving it a try. And so we have a group that is using the Lighthouse concept called Burlington Ready. In Ontario. We also have another one named Oakville Ready. There's another group in Hamilton and another group in Toronto, and they've been working with me over the course of maybe about 2 to 3 years, trying different things. And so when they try something new and it had a great response, then I say, okay, well, maybe I'll offer that one next month in my city. And so it's just been kind of growing in our region. But I think that because Tamarack Institute became involved, especially when we were starting to do asset-based community development, they started doing case studies. So you can even look up Tamarack Institute and look for our some of the case studies they've done on the Lighthouse concept. They're on their website, and connect up with communities of practice of people like myself trying to do these capacity building initiatives in emergency management.
That's great. And I will put those links in the video below so people can go and find more information about it. I think that the whole issue, I'm glad, that there is that focus on those faith-based communities. I was speaking to someone recently and they said, where else do you get people who meet every week? These volunteers get together, they know each other, they're familiar with each other, they have a facility, and a humanitarian piece to what they do. They care about the vulnerable. So it's a perfect fit. And I definitely, so this kit you talked about, is that something that is available online, or people need to contact you to get that toolkit, that piece? How does that work?
Usually best to contact me first, because I can help guide them through the kit. It's a lengthy one of the entire program, and if they only need bits and pieces of it, I can certainly guide them to the parts that are going to probably be where they could start and then go from there. So I just have them call me up and I'll send them it through their email, and it's a rather large PDF. It's not something that, but I have different versions of it. So I have some in Word format, some in PDF format, and if they would rather one or the other, I can certainly mix and match and splice the kit together according to their needs. So I usually have them email me or call me.
Okay, so I'll put your contact information on as well so people can get in touch with you. Michelle, is there anything else before we wrap up specific to the program that you want to mention or talk about?
I'm excited because we're now in our, I guess, 4th year. This is a term of council priority here in Brampton. So I have a project that the mayor and all the councillors in my city are very keen about. So if you are in the city of Brampton and you're interested in wanting to connect with the Lighthouse program, you can even approach your councillor in your ward. The mayor can certainly connect you if you're at one of our town hall meetings. And if you're ever on LinkedIn, you can look me up, and if you say I'd like more to learn more about working with faith-based organizations and emergency management, I will certainly be available to help you out.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Michelle, for taking the time today and talking about the program, because I think you mentioned earlier it's unique to Canada. I mean,
it is. Yeah. Yeah, it's very unique to Canada, and I found most of the time when I was first starting the project, before the other groups joined me, I was leading from the front, and there was really not a lot of research done in this area, and that's what compelled my stakeholders to say, Michelle, could you present this at a conference somewhere? Could you write a paper? So I have written a paper that was presented at the International Sociological Association's World Congress of Sociology in Toronto back in, I believe, 2018. And I'm connected to a number of different researchers on some of the different areas where we're doing disaster research. So if you're an academic looking for information, I'm probably one of the very first you'll come across, even when you're starting to research this. But encouraging you to jump in. You know, I want more people doing research about this because it's untapped resource in your community. Let's tap into that.
That's wonderful. So that's a great way to end. So Michelle, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me today, and wish you all the best.
Thank you, Leanne. Take care, everyone.